Hey guys, welcome to the Solution Architect channel, and this is part 3 of the MVC framework we implement using Visual Studio Code. And today I'm going to talk about the using of SQLite with the entity framework. So what is SQLite? SQLite is an in-process library which are self-contained, and it's also serverless with zero configuration, and it's a transactional SQL database engine. You do not need to install this when it comes with Visual Studio, and my reference here is www.sqlite.org about. So we're going to implement MVC pattern with the SQLite as the database. And what we're going to do is we're going to implement the model first. And with the model, we're going to add some data annotations. I'll show you exactly why do we need that. Because I want to use a auto-generator that will generate a controller and views for me automatically. And we're going to use product just as a sample table. Then the views as well as the controller will be auto-generated, and we'll make some changes to the view. So this is the table that I'm going to create on Visual Studio Code using C#. And just to quickly, for those that's really beginners here, I didn't add any relationships to other tables. There's no foreign keys. We've got one primary key ID here that is going to be auto-incremental, and it's going to increment by 1. And then we've got our product code, a product type, description, unit price, and quantity in stock. And the rules around this is mandatory for those two, mandatory for unit price and quantity in stock. You can see here, I've also added the type here, which is an int, a string, another string, and unit price is decimal, and our quantity in stock is int. So we'll take this table and we'll create a model in our code using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so if you have not created the test MVC web application with identity, then go to part 2 of the series for MVC on my videos and go add this project first, because I'm not going to show you now how to do this. Okay, so the next thing that you need to be aware of is that if you go to your project file, CS project file, you'll notice that you've got a Microsoft.entityframeworkcore.SQLite. Now if you create the MVC web application with your authentication, like your identity in part 2 of this series, it will automatically add your SQLite database for you. Now, what's important to note is that if you have a application where you do not have that already, then it's going to be important to add the package for SQLite. And the way that you add that is you go to your terminal. I'm not going to add this because it's already there, but I'm just going to show you. I think it's important for background. Add package. And it's exactly this, your Microsoft.entity framework core.SQLite. Okay, so the next thing we do, and really this is the important step, is to go and create your model. Create a new file, and we call it product.cs file. Okay, so let's start here. This is a clean class, and we're gonna just add the entity framework .core, and we also want to add system.collections.generic, and in our namespace, let me just go check to make sure we have the correct namespace. Okay, that's our namespace. And then we can start creating our classes. So first of all, what we want to do, create a public class for product, and then what we need to do is we need to add all the columns, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, so the first column is our public, and it's no, it's an int, and it's ID product, and you always have a get setter. Now for those that's beginners here, a set is when you set a value to this variable. A get is when you get the value from this variable, and that's why you have that. Sometimes you can override this set and gets, and you could do some things within here, but I'm not going to show you right now. But just remember, this is a get setter property is very important. Public string, and I'm just going to copy and paste the names in here. Oops. Okay, now the easy way of doing this is just, if you're lazy like me, okay, and then we have unit price, and this is going to be a decimal, and then the last one is public int quantity in stock. Okay, so there we have our model, but we're not done yet. Okay, now because now remember, this model does not belong on the database yet. So we're going to write some code and fancy auto-generated commands to generate the table inside the database. So what we need to do now is we need to tell this this model exactly what the following columns are going to do. The first one is going to be our key. So we need to tell this, okay, this is my key. Okay, and the reason why it's underscore is because there's something missing, and using data annotations. So this is called a data annotation. What we also have to do with this key, we need to tell it, okay, we don't want to calculate this. This needs to be auto-generated for me, and I'm just copying and pasting in this. Is this will tell me that this database generated, and this is my identity for this column. So this will be unique. So it will calculate from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. You won't have 2 1s or 2 2s. Okay. Okay. So then the next field we've got here, product code. Remember, we said this is going to be a mandatory field, and what we can do is, the reason why we set this up is when we create our view will have a certain thing that will have on screen, say, okay, enter your product code, for example. Now this is what I'm trying to do with this display. Display name, which means inside my view, I don't want it to have product code without a space there, or you can just say enter product code. Okay. What you also want to do, you can also limit the string length. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to say string length, and I want this to be only about 20 characters long. The next thing you need to do is, if this is a mandatory field, you say it's required, and you can also give it a specific error message. So this is validation that's going to happen on screen. Okay, so always within your curly brackets. Your curly brackets means that this message, if there's an error message that comes from here, it will say is a required, or just say is required. Okay, now we've got the same thing for our product type. Our product type is also mandatory. I just like to have spaces between that. And enter product type. Product type can also be 20. Ooh, let's make it a bit bigger. 50. And our description. Our description is not mandatory, so we can take this out. We don't have to have a description, but we can have a 150 description. Okay. And next one is our unit test. Unit price, sorry. Okay, let's add the unit price here. Unit price, the data format. So display data format here is numeric, and it will be a value, and this is also a required field. In stock, just going to no string length, this is int. Okay, now we have our table complete. And the next step, what we need to do is we need to now create this database for products. You go to terminal.net, ef migrations, add. Okay, and you need to add initial create. You need to tell it what context. Context. That is the command line that you need to enter. So in migrations, you'll see that it created initial request for create the table, and all additional things that you don't need to do, like the primary key and things like that. Okay, so next, go back to your terminal. Now we need to update our database. We say .NET ef database update, and we need to specify which context we want to update, and context, and enter. So that will add the tables and everything for you inside the database. Okay, so our next step will be to install the ASP.NET code generator, because what we want to do is we want to create the controller and the views automatically. You can then go create this on your own, but I would suggest not to. So the first, go to your terminal, and the first line of code that you're going to put in here is .NET tool install -g .NET ASP.NET code generator, and press enter. And mine was already installed because I used it previously. So, but that is just remember to do this first if you haven't done that before. Now we need to add the code generator to the package, which means if you go to your CS file here, you'll see if I run this, it will add this to the package. To your project file. And you can see now your code generator.design is added to your project file. So what you need to do next is you need to go to your CS project file, and inside here we're going to add a few lines here and just copy and paste those. This is just to reference the libraries for .NET command line when you type in anything in your terminal to recognize the commands that is available inside web.codegeneration.tools, as well as the entity framework core.tools.net. And after you've added anything to your project file, you need to run .NET restore. So the following command you need to enter into the terminal is this command. So this command is .NET, and this will be the ASP.NET code generator. The controller name is products controller. This is the controller we want to create. The model we want to use is product. This is your model there, product. The database context you want to use is our context we created, MVC Web App DB context. Relative path for the controllers is controllers, and use the default layout. The default layout will reference your shared default layouts here, and the last one is it will also reference your script libraries. Your script libraries is also inside. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you have the script libraries inside here for your bootstrapper. And enter. Now this is going to create your controllers, your one controller, your product controller, and also create all your views for your index file, and you create your update and your delete inside your product here. So let's get this, leave this to run. I'm just going to pause and play again when it's finished. Okay, so it's finished. So let me explain the code for you. So we've got our controller, products. You see, it's created the controller for you. And if you open it, by default, it will create an index. Details is a view. It will create the create. And the HTTP post is actually when you submit create. This will go save that information in the database. This is the get, the edit. When you edit it, that will then save it into. This is the post that will save it onto the database. You've got your delete, and this is delete that will delete it from the database. This is your controller, and what it also created is your views. So if you open up here, you'll see you've got now a product folder in there, create, delete, details, edit, index. Okay, so what we need to do is let's run .NET build just to make sure that there's no errors. There's a few warnings and I can get rid of that, but it's not going to make a big problem. And let's go to debug, and you click on this. Let's start up the application. Okay, this is our default page. I have not added anything to the menu here. I'm going to do that in my next video. But you can just reference that automatically, products.index, and there's nothing in here, and we haven't done any code changes. We just generated the controller and the views, and you can click on create new product code, something like that. You see, if I type anything like that, the reason why we add our data annotations is because this needs to recognize a number. So it's going to be, say, 20, and we have 5 in stock. Create. And there we have it. Now you can see we can edit. Go back to the list. We can do details. And also the spaces in here is the data annotations that we created inside our model. Go back, and you can also delete it if you want. I'm not going to delete this right now. Okay, and there you have it. You've got your data added to your web application.